Hi everyone, Nigel Saunders here. Today I'll be working on my Serissa foetida that's styled to look like an African acacia tree. In the wintertime, I was having some problems with branches dying back. You can see here and at the back there was an area that the branches were dying back, and there's a few up top here too. And I couldn't find any insects on it. I looked very carefully with a magnifying glass. So I sprayed it with soap and water, and it seemed to get better. And so it started to get better after a couple of weeks, so I thought, well, maybe that was a solution. So I sprayed it again, just a preventative spray, and it seemed to really help and restore the health of the tree. So whatever was attacking it, the soap and water helped do the trick. So today I'm going to be pruning it back. I've been letting the tree grow, quite long. You can see one branch at the back here is hanging down. So I've been letting it grow quite long to get the vigor back in the tree. It's fully used to the outdoor sun now, and I'm afraid if I let it grow any longer that these long shoots are going to shade out some of these lower branches, and there's growing tips on them. So I don't want them to die back and get shaded out by some of these upper branches that are flopping over. So I'm going to give it a pruning today, kind of restoring its shape. I'm going to start by getting the rounded canopy back, so kind of doing a profile prune to the upper canopy, getting that in check, and then I'll go in and do a more detailed pruning of the branch structure. For my profile prune, I like to use these large scissors, and I can just come in and shear the tree to a profile. So here I go. I'll just begin up top here, and this is just a rough pruning. It just gets everything back down to size, and then I go in and do a more detailed one. So I'm cutting through leaves and things, but it gets it roughly to the size. And very quickly too. There's that Serissa smell. Horrible smelling. So that's a very rough kind of shape at the moment. I'll come out front and kind of refine it now. I'm out front now looking at the tree, and I'm just refining the profile of the canopy, getting a kind of a rounded flat top shape to it, using my spinning tree bonsai turntable to rotate the tree around, which is just awesome. So I want the canopy rounded from the front view, but also rounded slightly from the side view. So and I don't want it too rounded. I want it more of a flat top tree. That's got a lot of the pruning done. However, I'm not done. I want to go above the tree, and I want to prune it in an oval shape when looking down. And the oval shape will kind of match the outline of the pot. And that's the way trees grow in nature. The sun rises on one side of the tree, goes across the sky, and sets on the other side of the tree. So the long side of the oval gets the most sunlight, and then the front and the back, because the sun never shines directly on this side, tends to be shorter. So that's why you get that oval shaped canopy in nature. I'm looking down at the tree now, so you can see there's a lot of branches that are outside of the profile of the pot. So I'll come in and cut those back. Some over this side. And that's got it roughly in check. Again, it's not perfect, but I'm growing this tree out, so the tree's a little small for the pot, so I'm you know, trying to fill in these spaces over here. You can see there needs to be more growth there, but it'll be a slow process. I got to grow the canopy out equally. Yeah, let's have a look at it from the front now. Here's a look at the tree from the front now. And I think I've got to flatten it out a bit more. It's a little too rounded on top. In the past I've kind of pruned it as a sort of more of an asymmetrical triangle. So I think I'll go for more of that kind of a shape. That's looking better. It's still, I think it's too high. It's not flat enough on top, so I'll try and get that down. That's looking better still. That is slowly getting there. I think that's looking much, much better. Maybe a little too rounded on the left-hand side. So that's looking better. I think on this side we need to lower it a bit. Well, I think that's not bad. I think I'd better prune off that hanging branch. That's looking much better. I've done some cleanup work on the tree, and I think I've still got some hanging branches up here that I've got to remove. Maybe a few over here too. Just the ones that are hanging down. And then my next job will be to come in and clean up the root base. You can see there's a lot of algae and moss growing around the roots, so I want to get that all nice and cleaned up and looking good. I've got my toothbrush and the water. Let's start the trunk cleaning. This is just plain rainwater I'm using. The bark on these serissas can get quite nice and silvery and light in color. So it's important to brush off all the algae and the moss off the trunks to get that nice silvery white trunk color. I think this branch that I always kept alive is actually dead now. It just got shaded out. So it is a true dead branch now, not just a fake dead branch. So now I have to be careful not to break it off, because it won't grow back. I'll want to brush up into the major branches up top here too, getting any algae off of those. They're looking a little dark and green. I've got the root base cleaned up now. Let's go in and have a look. So there it is. There's a few spots. There were some suckers here that I removed earlier. They were just coming up from the roots. Yeah, it's looking quite good. Once that trunk dries and it gets bleached by the sunlight, it'll look even better. My next task, I'm going to come in above the tree. I'd give it this hedge style or profile type pruning, and that kind of gets your length of your branches in check, but then you have to come in and go through each branch and look for crossing branches, branches that are interfering with each other, branches that are growing the wrong direction. So you've got to come in after your profile pruning and refine the branch structure to sort it all out. If you do the combination of the two methods, you get a pretty nice tree in the end. So I'm just looking at the branches. There's one I can take out here. That branch divided from 1 into 3. Just making sure each branch gets light. If branches get shaded out on these serissas, they just die off. They need the light. And you want some space between your branches. You don't want it to look like topiary. So it's important to come in and give the branches some separation so there's some space between them. Here's a branch that grows back in towards the center of the tree. I'm just kind of, there's some major trunk lines that come up to this canopy, and I'm just kind of separating them, making sure they're not overlapping the other pads of foliage. You also don't want branches to get too long and straight, so some of them need pruning back just to get some taper in them, change of direction, and that kind of thing. Once summer comes with these serissas, all my problems seem to go away. They do really well outdoors. It's just in the plant room. I think it's just too dark, maybe. Got to get more light in there this year. Or get my greenhouse done, one of the two. Okay, it's looking much better now. Gotten rid of a lot of the overlapping branches. Getting rid of a lot of branches that were growing in towards the center of the tree. There's a lot of branches that might be dead, but I'm not sure yet, so I'll see how the tree recovers, and then I'll see what, sprouts new foliage, and then remove the dead ones after that happens. That's all the work I'll be doing on my Serissa foetida today. Let's get out tree number 2 now. The next trees I'll be working on are my Manitoba maples, or they're called a box elder maple. This will be the second year since I dug them up from the front garden, and only 2 of the 3 trees survived. The one in the back here didn't make it, but I do have 2 good ones growing, so that's really good. So what I want to do today, they're starting to gain vigor. You can see the length of my inner nodes is just huge. They're doing really well. So I think it's time to start some preliminary work on them. And what I want to do, it's getting hard to water them. You can see down here, there's all these lower foliage and branches in the way. So I want to raise the canopy so I can see the trunks, so they're not hidden way down here. That way I can get in and water them properly. And I'll start, a little bit of styling today. Not a whole lot, but just some. My first step, I want to remove the dead trunk here. That is kind of in the way. It makes it hard to get in there with the watering can. And it's dead anyway, so I'm going to try and carefully remove it. And I have to be careful that the roots from the other 2 aren't growing kind of into the root base of the dead one. So I'll wiggle it around and see how easy it is to get out. All right, I've got my root rake, and I'll start raking away at the base of the dead tree. It is definitely dead. There's no live branches on it. Just double checking. It didn't grow any last year, so. Okay, let's see if I can get it out. There it goes. Yeah, so there's where I cut the roots off. Yeah, nothing much grew. It's a goner. It was a nice shape, this one. It's too bad. I guess I should have ground layered it and removed it slowly, but oh well. We got 2 other ones. So I'll fill that hole back in. Remove a few of these weeds in here. Bit of debris. And now I can start pruning the live ones. The tree that I work under, the shade tree over here, it is a Manitoba maple, and it was fairly young when we moved into the house, and I've been using clip and grow on it ever since. So let's just go in and have a look at it. Look at some of the branches and that. There's kind of the trunk. Birds really like to nest in this tree. It's really hidden up here. So a lot of these branches are dying off from too much shade up top. But yeah, it's got really interesting bark. It's not the most suitable tree for bonsai, but it works. And it's easy for me to climb up in here and prune the branches up in the canopy. I'm going to start the pruning on these bonsai versions. There's a lot of shoots on the one tree that are coming right from the base, and I'm going to prune all those off. I'll come in with my branch cutters and just remove those branches right at the base of the tree, like that. Pruning them nice and flush. Yeah, that looks really good. There's a dead branch here that I'm going to remove. It's just a small dead one. Like that. I'm just rotating the tree around. The dead branch there. A few dead leaves on the inside here. I noticed a few of these branches, it looks like a bird has tried to land on them and they've broken them. There's also some, you can see this shoot here, it's coming from the base of that tree on the other side. So I'll prune away those. There's a strong one at the base here that I will leave on the tree. There's one growing from the inside here. I better remove that one. There's one that's growing low down here. I'll get rid of that one. That's got a lot of that trunk exposed now. Just picking out some dead leaves here. There's a branch here that's kind of not in a good place. I'm going to remove that one also. Like that. That gets a lot of the structure cleaned out now. So my next task will be to reduce the height of some of these really long shoots to get a little bit more ramification and some movement and taper to the branches. All right, I'll start putting the height down, taking it back to the first pair of leaves here. Should make them look a little more tree-like. And I think that's pretty well got them in check. Okay, that's looking a lot more easy to water. They look a lot more compact too. I'll add a little bit of fertilizer to my water, give it a stir, and give the Manitoba maples a watering. These maples are native to Canada. They're not the greatest trees for bonsai. They're kind of a coarse growing tree. They're not a really long-lived tree. They'll live, you know, maybe 120 years old, which is long enough for me. The only time they kind of look good as a bonsai is in spring, when the leaves are just starting to come out. the leaves almost look like a Japanese maple in spring. So, but they have some nice characteristics. They've got fantastic bark on them. And, you know, if you don't mind growing them as a large bonsai, you can get something that looks quite nice. I like them. It's time now for today's update. The next update for today is another native Canadian tree. It's my red maple. Here's a look at my large red maple. Did a lot of root work to this tree, but it's still got a long way to go on the root base. But it's a good start. It's starting to get some branches to form the canopy. But you can see it has very few branches on it, so the leaves are really large. I've got it in a fairly big pot, so, you know, it's in the early training stages at the moment, but it still looks like an attractive tree, even though it's got huge leaves. So today I'm just going to do a little pruning up top. You can see this top shoot is grown quite long and it's kind of sticking out of the profile of the canopy, so I'll just prune that back. Alright, I'm looking for a place to prune it back to. I've got nothing really growing towards the front of the tree. If this is the front, I'm not really sure where I'll have the front, but probably that will be the front, I would think. So I'm just going to, there's a branch out the back here. I think I'll prune it just above that, so right here, like that. Leaves it a little open up top, but hopefully something will fill in there. It'll probably sprout new shoots just below this cut point. There's another stump of a branch I could prune back here. There's a dead one here I can prune back. And a couple of dead ones at the back here that can come off. I had another set of branches for the canopy up top, but they all died back, so I have a new set down lower now. So eventually I'll have to remove that dead part of the trunk in there. So yeah, lots of work to go on this tree. My last update for today is my Dawn Redwood tree. Here's a look at my Dawn Redwood tree. The leaves are coming in really nicely and the tree's looking good. I don't need to do any pruning to it today. I'm just letting it grow for now. But probably midsummer, some of the shoots will need to be taken back. This tree got quite a severe root pruning last time, and it survived, which is good. So it means that it's got the start of a nice radial root system. It'll really help get that nice buttressed trunk at the base, get some nice live veins growing up the tree. Should really look good in a couple of years from now. I had pruned the top of the tree, leaving this one shoot as the leader, and I was worried that it was going to die off. There's lots of shoots that I could replace it with, but now I see there's a little green bud at the very tip. So that's amazing that skinny little branch survived the winter. That's all for today. I'm Nigel Saunders. Thanks for joining me in the Bonsai Zone. I'll add a little bit of fertilizer. I'll add a little bit of fertilizer to my water and give the tree a water once I find my spoon.